going to read you a quote. The other thing we have to do is create new bidding procedures.
They're getting away with murder. Pharma has a lot of lobbies, a lot of lobbyists, and a lot of power. And there's very little bidding on drugs.
What's your reaction to it?
Joe Biden did it and this is really important for people to understand, not one Republican vote in either the House or the United States Senate. The Democrats in Congress and President Joe Biden were able to do something that everyone had talked about for years, but nobody had been able to get done, including Donald Trump.
Big Pharma. Big Pharma charging Americans more than 3 times what they charge other countries, simply because they could. And I think it's outrageous. That's why these negotiations matter.
How long in your life have you been talking about Medicare negotiating prescription drugs?
A very long time. If you go back and you look at the history books, in 1965, when LBJ actually passed Medicare, they tried to put prescription drugs in it and were unsuccessful. So this is not a new argument.
It means drug companies should no longer charge 3 times more for prescription drugs made in America, here in the United States, than they charge for the same drugs overseas.
Why in the world, if we're interested in lower prices for prescription drugs, would we put a prohibition in that Medicare can't use its market share to negotiate better prices for drug companies?
But it became even more relevant as the cost of prescription drugs has risen so dramatically. And risen dramatically for seniors, risen dramatically for Medicare.
Why are Americans getting so screwed?
Medicare is a price taker, where what drug companies want to charge us is what we pay for that drug. And that is not sustainable for people who need these drugs, and it's not sustainable for the program.
When you look at this industry, it is an industry whose profits are so huge. And they're so huge because they basically have their largest customer, the federal government, isn't allowed to negotiate prices. Now think about that for a second. The American healthcare system is a huge profit center for all of these companies.
What are the types of conditions that real people are suffering with out there, health conditions, that some of these drugs are trying to address?
The conditions that we're covering are things like diabetes, which millions of Americans are struggling with, cardiovascular and heart disease. So when you think about who are we talking about, we're talking about your mother who has diabetes. You're talking about your uncle who has a blood cancer. And so many of these conditions, these people are taking multiple drugs.
Are you the first government agency that's ever negotiated the price of prescription drugs?
We are not the first government agency to negotiate. Veterans Affairs negotiates on behalf of the people that are served. DOD negotiates. So it's new to Medicare, but it is not new to the drug industry.
We negotiate all the time to try to get the best bargain, right? And the idea that the federal government, the single largest customer in the world, would not be allowed by law to negotiate for better prices so that seniors can pay less and the federal government can pay less is just crazy.
This is terrifying for pharmaceutical companies and, yes, you, the shareholder. Merck sued the Department of Health and Human Services and the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, calling the drug pricing provisions in the IRA unconstitutional, a sham, and get this, tantamount to extortion.
You're up against some powerful people. I'm going to read. You're being sued. We're being told that what you're doing is unconstitutional. Yes, 8 of them. So we'll read them off. AstraZeneca, Bristol Myers Squibb, Johnson & Johnson, Astellas, Boehringer Ingelheim, Pharma, U.S. Chamber are all suing you, saying that what you're doing is unconstitutional. What's your reaction?
I'm very familiar with the arguments they make. And, listen, they do invent the future. They save lives. This is an industry where the largest companies make $38 billion in profits last year. They're making plenty of money. They just are. They have plenty of profits. And there's no reason the federal government should continue to basically subsidize at such enormous levels their profits.
When you think about the pain of not being able to pay for prescription drugs in this country, it's a pain not felt by certain people. in this country. And so it seems we got a class issue here of people who are most struggling are sometimes and often not seen. Who are the people most struggling?
So when you think about who takes these drugs, it is so many of us. There are millions of people. The drugs we just announced, the 10 that we've selected, 8 million people on the Medicare program take these drugs. These are only 10.
The people who can least afford it are paying the most. The biggest problem that we have as a country is we now have a system where the poorest and the sickest are subsidizing others.
You know, the letters that we get here at the White House, the ones that really make you feel like you've done something, accomplished something, are the ones on prescription drugs. And the people who write about what it means to have, as the president would say, a little breathing space at the end of the month. Oh, in this town, people tend to scoff at that kind of thing, or they don't really take it all that seriously because people make a lot of money here. And at least people in the political class make a lot of money here. And so this isn't that real to them. But when you go out into America, it is real. It's real.